Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens literally think that everyone on Earth is meant to serve them. And in this episode, we've got Karens getting arrested, harassing doctors, threatening to sue people, and one Karen learns a super painful lesson after smacking someone for disobeying her. So yeah, grab a drink, sit back, relax, and get ready to shake your head so hard in this one. Let's dive in. I still don't know why I used to get mistaken for being an employee like crazy in the past. I looked nothing like an employee, let alone an approachable person, as I have mega resting bitch face and I give off a vibe of leave me the heck alone, as I was going through a rough time in my life. Like, the amount of times it happened was ridiculous for my state of well-being, but nothing bad ever really happened from it, except that one time. I was at Goodwill with my family, and I took a break on a couch. Now, the Goodwill dress code is very specific, wearing all black, blue apron, lanyard, clothes that cover everything, like sneakers, pants, not shorts, etc. So here I am, sinking into a couch in the furniture area. I'm on my phone in a gray dress and sandals with no apron. I'm looking gaunt as hell when a short old woman approaches me with a blanket in one hand and a clear case for it in the other. I would normally help people anyways, but this lady was speaking to me in broken English and Armenian, the latter which I barely understand. I also want to note that this is mostly an Armenian area. Many employees at this store speak Armenian. Now, I am Armenian, but I suck at speaking it, so I can't help her, and I told her. But the woman kept trying with me. After a minute or two, she's getting mad at me, and at this point, I still didn't know that she thought I was an employee. So I panicked. I originally thought that since she looked frail, that she needed help putting the blanket back into the case. I tried to help, and she got mad. The woman yelled at me, and she yanks the blanket and case from me. I finally give up. I didn't know if she would understand me, but I tried it anyways. I say to the woman, "I'm sorry, but I don't understand what you want." I know the woman at the register speaks Armenian. I can't help. I then sit back down on the couch, facing away from this woman. That's when I feel the clear case smack me across the head. The woman then said, "Look at me." And the plastic case hits me again, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, she's actually effing hitting me with this clear case. Like, this woman was mad enough to summon the strength to start swinging this case down onto me from above. And I also want to add, it's a pretty big blanket case. I say to her, "Stop hitting me, please." And just like that, the woman walks off. That's when I thought to myself, I'm safe, until she comes back with another employee. The blanket was now back in the case, so I literally to this very moment have no idea what she wanted my help for. I heard them coming up from behind, and this older woman suddenly switches from Armenian to broken English. I'm sure it's for me to hear her insults. It went something like this. The woman says, "This woman here on couch, she did not help. She's bad employee. She doesn't know how to work." Now, my family goes to this Goodwill a lot, and the employees know us well. The employee came up from behind to see who I was, and that's when her face dropped. She looked absolutely horrified when she saw it was me. I didn't think that any employee saw her hitting me with the case, but she starts in on this old woman in Armenian. The employee says to her, "You were hitting her with the case? She's not even an employee. You can't hit anyone here like that." The rude lady looked at me for a moment before apologizing with a smile like nothing even happened before wandering off. The employee checked up on me briefly, and I told her I was fine really, that I was just shaken up by the situation. I'm pretty sure that employee wasn't gonna say anything about the woman hitting me until she saw it was me, with the way she suddenly snapped at the older woman. I'm told that employees at this location are usually lenient with elderly people, no matter how rude they get, as it's in the culture. but I'm glad this one employee told her that she can't just do that. Yeah, whether it's in the culture to respect elders or not, I think we can agree that if an elderly Karen starts smacking someone, well, that deserves no respect. And don't get me wrong, guys, like, I do understand the whole respect your elders thing, but damn, being lenient on rude elders like this is what overpowers them and gives them a sense that they can do stuff like this. Like, at the very least, OP should have taught that old Karen a lesson and taken the blanket and the case and stuck it up on a high shelf or something where she can't reach it. Here's some context. This happened way back when I was a teenager. I was 15 years old at the time. Every summer, my family and I go to my grandpa's cabin. It's a 9-hour drive, and it's located on a beautiful lake near a very small town. And because of its size, there's basically just one big restaurant in town. My family and I went into town for the summer market, and luckily, we booked a reservation for the restaurant before the whole market crowd swarmed the place. By the time we arrived for the reservation, the lineup for the restaurant was out the door and around the corner of the street. So here's the story. My family had just sat down in the outside area of the very crowded restaurant. I order my usual, a chicken wrap with a side of crispy green beans, and then went off to use the bathroom. I skipped towards the main entrance of the restaurant where the line was. As I was walking past the line, I heard possibly the most annoying shrill. What I now realize is a typical entitled Karen voice call out over the music. I hear a voice saying, "Hey, I'd like a table for 5, please." Now, once again, I thought nothing of it because there were several exhausted waitresses scrambling around taking orders and seating impatient customers. Like a normal person, I assumed Karen was talking to a waitress. That is, until I feel a light smack on my elbow. I turn around, wondering if my sister had followed me, but no. I was faced with a 40-something-year-old woman, and she was a pissed-off Karen. The woman basically screams at me and says, "Excuse me, you need to seat us right now. It is so hot in the sun, and I need to be seated now." Now, one thing about me is I'm an incredibly anxious person who would rather dance on Legos than endure confrontation, especially with strangers. Even more so when I was 15 years old. Any type of aggressive social confrontation makes me freeze up on the spot. So naturally, I froze and I stared at Karen like a deer in headlights, before turning and fleeing into the restaurant and practically sprinting into the bathroom stall. About 10 minutes later, I make my way back outside and Karen spots me. The woman stomped her foot and she says, "You, get over here right now." Once again, I just stare at her and the woman says, "Now." My dumb, persuasive ass decides to listen to her, and on the verge of tears, I walk over to her, and I stutter, "Yes?" The Karen, now with hands on her hips, with a face that I'm pretty sure I've seen in my sleep paralysis nightmare, says, "Listen here, young lady, and you listen good. You sat down at that table when you should have been working. Can't you see how busy this place is? Some of us have been waiting for 25 minutes. I tried to politely wave you over, but you just sat there chatting with customers. And then you go into the bathroom. I called you again and you ignore me. Twice. She then wags her finger at me like I'm a dog or something. She then says, "Get off your ass and go do your effing job and get me a table like I've asked." And seriously, right about now, I was literally frozen in shock and fear. My slow brain finally put the pieces together. This woman thought I worked at the restaurant, despite looking nothing like a waitress. And how this lady came to the conclusion that I was a waitress was beyond me. First of all, for a 15-year-old, I looked about 9. I was also wearing shabby pink leggings and a blue tank top. Secondly, all the waitresses wear black dress shirts with black pants and an apron. Having never encountered someone this stupid, I genuinely didn't know what to do. When I didn't respond, one of Karen's fellow Wine Mom squad members piped up. Let's call her Linda. And Linda says, excuse me, Karen, leave her alone. She then looks at me and says, just go do your job now. Me, finally managing to find my voice, say, I don't work here, I'm sorry. And I thought this would be the end of it, but Karen exploded. The woman grabs my arm and she pulls me in real close, to where I can smell her cigarette breath, and she does that stupid loud whispering thing at me. The woman says, I can't believe what I'm hearing. Never in my life have I ever met such a rude, worthless employee. Now, if you want to keep this job, I suggest you get me a table right now. I managed to tell Karen, I'm here for dinner with my family. I don't even work. She then stops me and she says, give us that corner table. She then points at the table that my family is sitting at and she says, I want that one. I just walk away in tears at this point. Karen and company literally start screaming, and I mean screaming at me, so I cried even harder. By this point, everybody outside was looking at me, a sobbing 15-year-old girl being cursed at by middle-aged women, and some were even shouting at the Karens. I don't remember what they said because, again, this happened a long time ago. Apparently, the manager was called. Karen and company continued their shrieking about how unfair this was, and they end up getting kicked out. Also, my dad had to hold back my grandpa, who literally got out of surgery a few days prior, from going over there and smacking the crap out of them. My mom let me order 2 pieces of cake, and my sister draws a flower on a napkin to try and make me feel better. Personally, it traumatized me for a while, and it definitely didn't help my social anxiety issues. Yeah, let's hope that group of Karens was permanently banned from that place that day. Like, it is just so absurd how some people have that sense of self-importance where they don't care about anyone else. And the thing is, there were probably so many people ahead of them too. But hey, let's assault someone who we think is a waitress, call them names, and be really mean to them, because that will surely get us a table faster. Karen logic, right? So let me set up a few things first before I get into the story. I'm a vet nurse, and as I'm sure you can probably guess, it wouldn't be hard to tell what I do for a living if you saw me. I show up to work every day in scrubs, a name tag with the animal's hospital name on it, and a stethoscope around my neck. Occasionally, outside of my workplace, people do mistake me for a human nurse, which to be fair is perfectly reasonable. However, the part where it gets confusing is I get mistaken for a retail worker almost every day. You see, the animal hospital I work for is a notorious corporate chain, which is almost always housed by a very popular pet supply store. And for the record, they're entirely 2 different companies, despite the fact they share a building. So occasionally, throughout the day, if I have to take the hazmat to the loading dock for a disposal or go to the public bathroom, I get stopped all the time by shoppers who look at me and somehow assume that I'm one of the shop clerks. Now, sometimes I am able to help them out, but most of the time, they usually have a question that I can't answer, or they need me to do something I'm not authorized to do. So usually, we have the polite but awkward exchange of, I don't work here, I'm sorry, and they go on to find someone who can help. One busy summer weekend, the hospital was swamped. We're talking 10 surgeries, 3 active doctors on duty, over 80 booked appointments. It was mayhem. Of course, it would be a day that we were getting run ragged by the hectic schedule, when this one store clerk who sold small pets noticed that one hamster was very sick. So we of course tell her to bring him over and we'd see what we could do for him. Unfortunately, this poor little guy winds up having a pretty grim prognosis and we weren't gonna be able to save him. I tried to call the girl selling the small pets to tell her the bad news, but she was swamped with customers and she couldn't answer the phone. I did feel bad because she genuinely seemed worried and I didn't want to leave her wondering, so I told the doctor to hold off for a minute, and I decided to go to the store area to tell her in person. I got to the small pets section of the store, trying to spot the same girl who brought the hamster over, but she seemed to be off somewhere else at the time. Enter Super Karen. Now, if you opened up a dictionary and you looked for the word soccer mom, I guarantee that you would find a picture of this lady in it. We're talking yoga pants that have never seen a gym, the Crocs, the classic let me speak to the manager haircut, complete with two obnoxious whiny kids running wildly around the store, bothering everyone. Now, I guess I'd been tuning her out for some time, because the excuse me I heard sounded like it had to have been the 10th one. I turned to look at her, and then looked around at everyone else near me, and then pointed at myself and said, "Are you talking to me?" The Super Karen says, "Finally! I've been trying to get your attention forever now. Now my son wants a guinea pig, so get one for us." I respond, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm a vet nurse. I don't work here. I'm actually looking for the girl who does, so if I see her, I can probably ask her to get one for you." Super Karen says, "You look like you work here. I've been waiting to get a guinea pig for 20 minutes now, so you need to go get one for me." At this point, I was starting to get uncomfortable. I tell Karen I'm wearing scrubs and a stethoscope. I don't have a key to the kennels. I'm sorry, but I seriously can't get one for you. That's when Super Karen says, "Oh my goodness, you're useless. Where's the manager?" Finally, descending from the crowd like a merciful angel from the heavens was the girl who brought me the hamster that morning. She looked like her day was going just about as crazy as mine was. Super Karen says, "Excuse me, are you the manager?" The store clerk says, "I'm in charge of the small pets department. Yes, what can I help you with today?" Super Karen then goes on and says, "Your employee is being disrespectful. I've been waiting around for 20 damn minutes trying to get a guinea pig for my son, and now she's pretending like she don't even work here." The store clerk gives me a weird look, and she turns back to Karen and she says, "She's a nurse at the animal hospital. I can get you a guinea pig in a minute if you like." She then turns to me and says, "What are you doing here anyways, OP?" Very much regretting my decisions at this point, I now had to awkwardly stand there in front of Karen and the store clerk and let her know that her hamster wasn't gonna make it. Karen had enough of us talking useless personal matters in a workplace, and she storms off in a random direction. I'm glad to say I never saw or heard from her ever again. The girl came back to the hospital with me to say goodbye to the hamster before we put him to rest. And even though it was sad, I'm glad she was able to get a chance to see him off. So I'm a long-time lurker who's enjoyed reading, but I just had this happen to me a couple of weeks ago. And now that legalities got cleared up, I knew I needed to share. Here's some background. I'm in my 40s and I'm former military/army. I now work with adults 18+ with mental or physical disabilities. One of the common parts of my job is escorting clients to the gym who want to work out to try to keep their weight down. In some cases, I just need to be there, while in other cases, I need to be within arm's reach of a client at all times, just in case. The company I work with has a contract for gym use with a local hospital. The hospital runs a positive health program, so almost anyone can get a membership and get help, like a lot of big-time gyms. From this point on, the story unfolds quickly. On the day in question, I was there with two clients, one who's independent and the other whom I have to stay within 5 to 10 feet of at all times. We were lifting free weights, and I was changing the weights over for his lighter load, and that's when Karen approaches. Now, I am in black shorts, which is standard for gym staff, and I'm wearing an old gray army t-shirt with the words Army across the front in big black letters. The staff here wears gray shirts, but theirs has the hospital's bright, colorful logo over the heart, nothing else. As I said, this unfolded quickly. So Karen comes storming up to me and she says, "Excuse me, I have an appointment and you need to find my trainer." I respond, "I'm sorry, miss, I don't work here." Karen says, "Don't you give me that crap, you're clearly helping him." To which I respond, "Yes, miss, I'm his personal staff from another company. We're merely utilizing a membership here, just like you." Karen then raises her voice even louder and she says, "Don't you give me that." And at this point, my client starts making a noise that he makes when he's getting frustrated or scared. And Karen raising her voice could easily do that to him. So I turn my head to look at and talk to him. And that's when I hear Karen say, "Don't you ignore me," followed by a pow. She actually hit me in the face, catching me in the nose as I turned to look at my client. And here's an important note here. I'd been holding a 45-pound weight in front of me in both hands, and with the shock of the slap, my grip slipped. There was no bouncy boing of a weight dropped on the rubber floor mats either, just a sickening crunch. I didn't feel anything, which did worry me until I saw the look of not being able to breathe on Karen's face. The weight had landed just across the base of her toes, on top of her bright, sparkly gym shoes. My one guy starts laughing his butt off. I move him aside, leaving her there, and call for a nurse. But there were a good half-dozen medical staff, including 2 doctors in the gym at that time. So I just walked my guy away to minimize his stimulus and let them handle it. Keeping it short, several bones in Karen's foot were broken. She wanted me fired, and then, when learning that I didn't work there, she wanted to sue me, the hospital, and the gym. I did indeed file charges for assault, and she not only lost grounds for her lawsuit, but she lost her membership because she assaulted another client, and she got handed a hefty hospital bill for her foot. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm just glad to be in the clear and that there were so many witnesses. Seriously, if that's not instant karma for you, I don't know what is. And just knowing the fact that Karen lost the grounds for that lawsuit and she faced charges for assault, like what a cherry on top that was. And I bet she regretted hitting OP in the face big time. And this person shares a short post that says, "I've been working at a small neighborhood, family-owned gym for 3 years now. I've gotten to know all the regular members on a first-name basis, and I put a lot of effort into remembering the names of newer members and what times they usually come in. I work mornings, evenings, and nights, depending on the day. So that said, one day, about 8 months ago, I arrived to work just before noon, and I had closed the night before. The general manager decided to leave early for the day and left me alone to take care of things myself. And this is typical, as I've worked here the longest out of everyone on staff. A little bit later, the phone rings, and I answer with my self-scripted prompt saying, "Thank you for calling Mountain Fitness Gym. This is so-and-so. How can I help you?" The oblivious Karen launches into a tirade. She's swearing and screaming at me, followed by saying, "I was locked in your gym last night." Me, trying to buy time for my brain to grasp the situation, say, "I'm sorry." She then says, "I was locked in your stupid gym last night. I was in the middle of showering and someone turned off all the lights in the locker room. I screamed for help and no one came. You guys locked me in. And remember, I closed last night. I've been doing this for a while now, and I always check the bathrooms, locker rooms, and showers to make sure no one's in there, and that the faucets are turned completely off." I respond, "That's impossible, ma'am. I closed last night, and there was nobody in the locker rooms. Our alarms would have gone off if someone was still in there." Karen responds, "Well, I was, and I'm going to sue you." Now, I'm not claiming to be the most attentive person in the world, but one thing I do when I close is I smack the wall of the women's locker room, and I shout, "Is anybody in there?" Staff coming in. I then enter and do a complete sweep, and that night, there was nobody in there. So I say, "Ma'am, what was the name of the gym you were locked in?" Karen says, "You work there, you should know. If you don't know the place you work at, you might be an idiot." I then repeat myself and I say, "No ma'am, I want you to tell me the name of the gym you were locked inside of last night." Karen then says, "Okay," and she names some other effing gym. And I tell her, "Yeah, this is Mountain Fitness. You called the wrong gym." The woman just thanks me and she says, "I'll call them," followed by a click. Okay, so I do work at the actual location that this story takes place. However, I don't work in the area in question. You'll see in a minute. So I work at a university as an administrations recruiter. And last summer, I was walking through the building after my lunch when I see this woman wandering through the empty first floor. As soon as she sees me, she beams over to me as fast as she could, and she says, "Excuse me, where's the Chick-fil-A?" Now, we do have an express Chick-fil-A that's entirely student-run in one of our secondary dining halls. And while it's closed between the months of May to July, it still shows up as a location on all the internet map sites for reasons we'll never know. I think you know where this is going. I tell the woman, "Oh, it's down the hall that way, leading into another building. But I'm sorry, it's closed for the summer." The lady then says, "Closed? But the app says open." I respond, "Oh, we don't have any control over what's online, but I can tell you it's closed, like all the other dining sites on campus." That's when the lady says to me, "So why are you telling people on Google that it's open and we come all the way down here?" I respond, "I'm sorry, but I don't work in campus dining or Chick-fil-A, so I can't say why they mark it open, but there's a full restaurant like 5 minutes up that way." The woman, now losing her temper, says, "But I want to eat here. So why are you advertising somewhere that isn't open and luring us out here? You should be ashamed of what you're doing. You are a scammer." I let her know, again, we didn't advertise. And that's when she interrupts and says, "I should call the police. Let me speak to your supervisor. I need to talk to him about your store." I just thought to myself, store? I'm an admissions director. I don't have a supervisor other than the director herself. And this definitely isn't something she cares to hear about. Now, I knew this lady had a story in her head and wasn't going away easily, so I had an idea. I say to her, "I'm sorry ma'am, but I have a presentation starting soon, but I hope you find an answer to your question." I began walking back towards the office that I usually answer legitimate questions at, and sure enough, this lady follows me like an angry gremlin. As I walked, I quickly texted our secretary a short brief of what's happening, and then put some distance between me and the gremlin woman as we enter the office. The secretary says, "Hi ma'am, how can I help you today?" The Karen goes off and she says, "I'd like to complain about the terrible business practice by your restaurant, and your employee here has no skills related to customer service." The secretary, confused, asked, "I'm sorry, but what restaurant?" Karen proceeds to go on a tangent about us, Chick-fil-A, restaurant management, all that stuff. And our secretary, who has 30 plus years of working in higher education, has the most disappointed in humanity look on her face I've ever seen. The secretary says, "Ma'am, we're a university admissions office, and if you don't have any questions regarding that, you'll have to take your concerns somewhere else." That's when Karen screams and says, "No, I want to do this right here, and I'm not leaving until I get my Chick-fil-A. You lured me here." She then slams her fist into the desk on here. The secretary, standing up and picking up the phone, says, "I'm calling campus police who are located across the walkway here. I'd advise if you don't want to be escorted out and possibly arrested, you need to leave the school now." At this, Karen's eyes widened a bit as she processed her next move. The woman then huffed and stormed out of our office. I'm not sure what happened to her exactly, but her story made for a hilarious story on our Friday meeting, and I bought our secretary a week's worth of coffee. Guys, I've said this so many times, I just never understand how people have the time to escalate things to that point. Like, the average person would have been like, "Oh, no Chick-fil-A? Well, let's go somewhere else." But no, not Karen. Let's throw a tantrum and almost get arrested. And this person comments, like in most posts in this sub, I'm baffled by people who think you're lying to them. Like, why on earth would an employee tell them I don't work here if they do? There are exactly 0 reasons to do that. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy posts. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled people episode, where Karens won't stop stealing food from people. It's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.